Hello, folks, and welcome to another interview for Sew Yellow For Endo 2025. It is so exciting. Honestly, these interviews I think might be my favorite bit of the month of the campaign, because it's just epic getting to chat about endometriosis and our experiences with it, and to chat about it openly and freely with our lovely guests. So, before I introduce our fabulous guest today, I do want to say the biggest thank you to everyone for taking part. There is still time to donate. Make sure you've posted on Instagram. We will be doing the prize draw very soon. So do watch, listen, engage till the end of the month. There is still stuff to find out. We are here on YouTube, but if you would like to follow any of this on Instagram, or you can go over to Just Giving and read more details, all of that will be linked in the caption below. So today we have a fabulous guest. I'm very, very excited because we've never actually met, which is often the way with these interviews, but I'm excited about it. Hello, Stacey. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Jess. Hi, nice to finally meet you.
I know. Yeah, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I know it is a big thing, sharing your story sort of publicly, but it really does. We were talking about this earlier, but it really does help other people with endometriosis,
Yeah,
particularly who are very early in their diagnosis journey. So yeah, thank you so much for being here.
no problem.
So we're going to kick off, and I'm going to ask a sort of annoying general question, which is, can you tell us a little bit about your journey with endometriosis, what it looked like, where you started, sort of diagnosis, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so I've had symptoms of endometriosis for years and years, and I think that is unfortunately the case for many people. Like, it isn't something that you go to the doctors with and they go, "Oh, it's that." We can deal with that. It takes going back and back and back and back until you finally get the tests that you need,
Yeah,
the scans that you need, and to be referred, which, as we all know, is a horrific waiting time to even just get to see somebody about this. But once you do get through that process, it it does make you feel sort of validated that actually
definitely.
your symptoms have been listened to, and yeah, finally you're on this path. So I've had symptoms for years and years and years, and actually only recently in December been diagnosed full,
Wow.
yeah, with endometriosis. And so it has, I've had previous sort of surgeries where they've dealt with it, like many years ago, and then had to be re-referred and then re-diagnosed. So I've sort of thought it, I've always thought this is what I think it is from experience. This is what I think has reoccurred. But it has taken years to get back to this point, which is really frustrating. But I am here now, so I know exactly what is wrong with me, and I'm on that journey. Well, I'm at the very, very, very beginning of the journey to get back to some kind of normality, hopefully.
But it is, so I would say I had my diagnosis 8 years, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, something like that. And there is, although you still, as you say, have a long way to go, it's so nice knowing where you're going. Like, you know what the problem is. And it
Yeah.
is validating after, as you say, years of appointments and trying to get people to listen to you and to say this is a problem.
Yeah.
It's so validating to hear. Do you mind me asking how you were diagnosed?
So I've had ultrasound scans which always showed nothing, absolutely nothing, and they always said, if there was anything, it would pick it up. If there was big cysts, it would pick it up. I didn't have any cysts, the chocolate cysts or anything like that that people talk about that are visible on an ultrasound.
Me
So
neither.
nothing was ever picked up that way. So I had a laparoscopy done in December, which was meant to be a diagnostic one and then an excision one.
Yeah,
But due to the severity of the endometriosis, it only ended up being a diagnostic one.
yeah.
They said that it was stage 4 endometriosis. It was deeply infiltrated. It had spread through multiple organs. And so they had to abandon the laparoscopy. And then now I'm at the stage where the laparoscopy is being done. they got rid of some, but hardly any in comparison to what is actually
What is
there,
there? Yeah.
unfortunately. And then I've had an MRI 2 weeks ago, and I'm waiting for the results of that to determine what happens next. And I have been advised that it probably will entail further surgery, but what
Yeah.
that actually looks like, I don't know yet, because they're not able to sort of give me that full information until they've reviewed the MRI and had a meeting with all the various multiple surgeons and everything that are
Well,
required.
that's the thing as well. It's worth highlighting as well to anyone on here who has limited or no experience of this area. Because it's in your abdominal and pelvic cavity, um, if you need more extensive surgery, that involves bowel surgeons and or it can involve sort of urologists and bowel and bladder surgeons, and it involves actually a massive team.
Yeah,
Kim, who has shared her story brilliantly for a number of years, talks about she had 9 centimeters of her bowel removed as part of her surgery because everything was sort of fused together. Um,
yeah,
and I know that we actually had the same surgeon. Hilariously, we had no idea. That was really funny. There's a couple of people I've had the same surgeon on actually. But it was interesting hearing again her talk about how it's not a simple process to figure
no,
out how and where and what the best way forward is.
yeah,
How involved, obviously you've had your MRI,
yeah.
how involved have you been? Have they spoken to you a lot? Have they talked to you through what they found in your laparoscopy?
So the only information I have so far is what they came to my bedside with after the surgery, and said it was in my bowel, it was on my bladder, everything is fused together. There's also adenomyosis.
Yeah,
So the uterus is really bulky. It's probably 2 to 3 times the size it should be, which is
I'm so
causing
sorry.
to look pregnant, all of the time. I can't, no matter how much I breathe in or like suck in, like it's there all the time, and there's literally nothing I can do about that. But it was quite devastating to hear that news that this is everywhere
Yeah.
and there are so many organs affected. And not only that, but you've got adenomyosis and it's going to involve major surgery. And, it that is quite a shocking thing to wake up to. You're expecting them to go, we fixed you, brilliant, off you go, you're all better. But to hear the absolute reverse of that is devastating.
No, absolutely. I am so sorry that has been. I'm very happy they're dealing with it seriously and they're doing it properly because there are women who don't get to have we're both very lucky to even have diagnostic surgery because the NHS does, well, actually most medical systems I found out from interviewing someone else, most medical systems around the world treat it as an elective surgery, which makes me
Wow.
very angry. Um,
Yeah.
because we don't want it.
No, we
We
didn't
just
choose to do
need
like
it.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, yeah. So I'm happy they're dealing with it seriously, but yeah, it must have been absolutely devastating to, as you say, wake up and find out not only is it not gone, but there's
yeah,
actually triple the amount you're expecting there to be. So I'm really sorry you're going through that. Um, and I hope you get a speedy result.
yeah. I hope so too, because even for the laparoscopy, that took nearly 2 years to get that. The waiting list for that was nearly 2 years, so
Yeah,
it does terrify me slightly how long I'm going to have to wait for the next part of this. I've not even got the full MRI details yet. I only know what they told me at the time.
yeah.
I've not yet met with the consultant or the surgical team, so that bit is quite like stressful because although I've got some idea what's coming, I don't really fully know what's going to happen next.
Yeah. No, and that is really challenging. And I think it's definitely one of the bits I struggled with the most. Just the not knowing.
Yeah,
Like I think once I had it, for me, it's very different because my surgery was very long but very effective because they already knew it was there. So my
yeah,
surgery was sort of I had two, but the first one wasn't meant to be that. They just sort of found it doing other stuff.
okay.
And I had my appendix out, and they were like, "Oh, by the way,
Oh, bless you.
this is here," which was great because I was like, "Oh, thank God." But yeah, it was definitely the time between those two surgeries. I think my mental health was at the worst with this condition because I just felt so like the day-to-day is awful because you're still in pain, you're still in agony, you're recovering from surgery as well, which isn't fun. Um, but you don't have an answer yet.
No, and it is that day to day where you're trying to carry on as normal. You're trying to go to work. You're trying to, I've got a 9-year old daughter, and you're trying to be mum, and you're trying to be an employee, and trying to be a friend and a wife, and all of those things. But actually, medically, nothing has changed. In fact, it's worse because you're not fixed in the slightest. But now you've got all of these horrible things going through your head, and you're in limbo because you're at the mercy of waiting lists and consultants and surgeons, and you're just trying to carry on as normal, but
Yeah.
it's you're in pain every single day,
Yeah.
and you're in like I have really bad fatigue, and trying to just get through to the end of your working day can be debilitating sometimes. It's can be unmanageable at times, and it really, really does affect your mental health. Like I have struggled the last few months since the diagnosis, because how do you take all of that information in and carry on like nothing's happened? It's so
It's
hard.
it's very obviously everyone has very different experiences, and I cannot imagine how you feel in terms of the scale of it. But I can empathize with the great. I know what it is. That doesn't really help me right now though, because I still
Yeah.
can't really walk or stay awake or,
Yeah.
like for me, because it was all over one of the ligaments in my hip. I couldn't like use one of my legs whenever I was on my period, like I couldn't like put it down.
Yeah.
And so you're like, it's great, thank you for telling me, but also, yeah, none of this has helped right now.
Yeah, I have a similar thing where at certain times it it must press on the nerve, and it shoots down my hip into my leg and causes like a sciatica type pain, and you literally can't bear weight on one of your legs
Yeah.
sometimes.
Oh, it's awful.
Yeah,
But
and you
again,
wouldn't
it's
think that would be a symptom, but it is one of the horrible weird
yeah,
of
it's well, part of the
repercussions.
problem is we deal with it as a gynae condition, and research is increasingly showing that although it's womb-like tissue, it's not necessarily womb tissue. And there's a brilliant surgeon I interviewed a couple of years ago, and I'll reshare this on my stories when this comes out as well. Who was talking about how people can have it on their lungs and in their diaphragm, but there's also people who have it in their nose and their belly button and all sorts of weird places. It does travel through your body. It is an inflammatory condition.
Yeah,
But I don't think sometimes it's treated that way because it's a women's health condition.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it
And
is
that's it.
a whole body condition, and
Yeah.
it does at times feel like every single part of your body is affected by it. Your legs ache, or certainly mine do. Like my thigh muscle burn like I've run a marathon. I mean, if only I could, like if only I had the energy to do that. But
Yeah.
they they burn, and then like your hip, and you're like, these shouldn't be endometriosis symptoms. This is crazy.
Well, exactly. Or like I went through like 2 years of pelvic physio because I had it on my bladder and my bowel, and once it was taken off, I won't go into it, but there was a whole thing where they were expanding beyond their means. So I had to have like I think it was 6 months to a year of pelvic physio. But there's also the mental side of that where you just go like at the time I was like, I'm 22. I shouldn't really like I'm not anymore. But at the time I was like, I I don't feel like this is the life I should be having.
No, no,
And that's a feeling as well, where you go, as you
yeah,
say, you're a wife, you're a mum, you're a co-worker, you're your job, you're your hobbies, but also
yeah,
you're someone with endo and adeno right now. And
yeah.
that really affects what you can do.
Yeah, it really does. Like the amount of things I've had to cancel, and it's it's awful that you have to do that, but sometimes you've got nothing left, and you're in so much pain that you can't attend things, you can't go, you can't meet friends, you can't go for a coffee, you can't take your child to a party, you can't go to work. Like there are times that it is absolutely unbearably painful and completely debilitating.
Can I ask, because everyone's day to day does look different,
Yeah.
what are your sort of main symptoms? I know we've talked about pain, but like,
Absolutely every day without fail, whether I'm on a period or not, pain
yeah,
constantly, 24/7, day in, day out, pain. So, like deep, deep pelvic pain,
Yeah.
backache. I, more recently, I didn't used to have this, but more recently, every day my legs ache. I get weird, horrible stabbing pains across my stomach when I go to the toilet. Both types of toilet,
Yeah.
like that is incredibly painful in both areas. Bleeding from both, like it is just it is crazy. And then when you actually have a period on top of that, it is like someone is just jabbing a knife through there. Like it feels like a twisting sort of stabbing pain.
And there's
And
nothing like it. If
there's
you
not.
haven't had it, whatever, like the closest thing I can equate it to, the only thing I've experienced since my surgery that's as painful as my 3 weeks out of 4 used to be was kidney stones. That's the only thing I've had that even approached it, where I was like, okay, well, this is agonizing. And this used to be every day.
Yeah.
That's the weird thing. I hope you have this experience, I should say. I really like my fingers and toes are crossed for you. A couple of years after it must have been a year or two after my surgery. It would have been 2021. I remember suddenly one day, just out of nowhere, bursting into tears because I realized I wasn't in pain and I hadn't been in pain for ages. And it was the weirdest
Yeah.
feeling. So I was like, I don't remember when.
No,
Yeah.
I
And
don't.
I imagine
I
you don't either.
know. You have days where you think, oh, actually, it's not too bad. Like, it's not too bad. There's still pain there. That
Oh yeah, it's
would,
just not as bad. But
it's, but there's days that you get through and think, oh, that wasn't so bad. And then there's days that you are just floored from the minute you open your eyes and you know it's going to be a bad day.
yeah,
Um,
no, definitely. Can I ask when you're like what age were you when your symptoms sort of started?
um, Probably mid 20s. Like, I'm
Yeah.
42, so probably for the last 20 years, I've had symptoms. I didn't get them checked out straight away. I just thought that was how you meant to feel. But over the over the years, I did go back and go back and go back and go back. But yeah, it probably for the last 20 years, but it has got a lot worse in the last, well, probably the last couple of years. Definitely the last year, I've seen the most sort of decline in my health and therefore my mental health too.
And your standard of living and everything as well, because it does
Yeah,
directly relate. Like, um, I think it is interesting because it is a cumulative condition, but also it can, depending on the rest of your hormones in your body and all that kind of stuff, it can make it grow faster or more
yeah,
differently. I always think it's interesting that so I had for reference of sort of watchers and listeners, I had my endometriosis discovered in January 2018. Um, which was still many, many years after going, I
yeah.
think there's a problem. But I had my appendix out, and on the appendix report it says scattered patches of endometriosis. Now,
Um,
obviously, when you have your appendix out, they go straight to your appendix. They don't look around.
yeah.
I had my surgery 18 months later, and they spent, I think, 4 to 5 hours removing it from everywhere. And I have what I love actually. I reread this last year. I have my full surgery notes listing every single place it was taken off,
Wow.
which is
Did you
which is
have to
great.
request those?
Pardon, sorry.
You have to request those after
No,
the
they
time.
gave them to me.
They,
I think it's because mine was so, for clarity, it was an NHS surgery,
yeah.
but because I'd been on the waiting list over 18 months and my surgeon had a private practice, the NHS basically made him do it there. So I
Okay.
had a bed and it was done at a private hospital, but it was an NHS surgery.
Yeah.
Um, but one thing private hospitals give you when you leave is a nice big folder,
Oh, okay. Right.
everything. But you can request it and it should be on your records anyway. It should be on like your discharge summary.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I would definitely ask for the more detailed ones because they do. I think they don't automatically give it to you in an NHS one, but they will if you ask. Because yeah, when I had my appendix out, it took 3 months before I actually knew my appendix had been taken out. No one told me because it was like emergency surgery. Yeah, no one told me. And I was like, oh, did they? Because I was like, yeah, I'll be honest. I was at the doctor's and they were like, so you had your appendix out in January. I was like, oh, did I? Oh, good, good, okay. Yeah. Yeah, that was a time. But yeah, so the point I was trying to make is that in 18 months, I'd say it's probably tripled.
Yeah,
And I don't know why. We don't really know what affects the growth rates that much. But I think that's the frustrating thing. If you know it's there and it's just getting worse,
yeah,
it's wild. And I have to as well, and I'm sure you do the same. Our hearts out to anyone who is watching, who is in the same boat, who is waiting for their surgery, who is
yeah,
waiting for
absolutely.
diagnosis as well,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it's it's hard not even be able to say it's endometriosis if you don't know.
yeah. You've got all these symptoms and you think you know what it is, and but to not actually know that that's really, really hard
Oh
to
God, yeah.
not have.
Can I ask? This is a question I ask everybody because it's really interesting to me. So, your symptoms started mid-20s. When was the first time someone said, "Oh, this might be endometriosis"?
Oh gosh. I, I don't even know. Just a good few years later. A
Yeah.
good few years later. Yeah.
So, what
It
was
took a
your
lot of hospital trips, a lot of trips to accident and emergency. Wait, I got told many times it's your appendix. It's your appendix. So
Yes.
many times you've got appendicitis. You go in, you go to the like, I don't know what they're called, that ward where they do all the tests and everything, the surgical like assessment ward, that's what it's called. And then they release you because they realize it's not that, but they don't know what else it is. But they cross that off. No, it's not an appendicitis. So off you go. But then they don't tell you what it is or what it was. They just let you go.
Well,
So
that's the
yeah,
thing that so many people have tried to take my appendix out. Like it has come up a lot. And you're like, no, I mean, it was so much better once it was gone, obviously. So I was like, I promise you, it's not. It's in a jar in this hospital. Like it isn't in me. Um, but it is something where they go, oh, well, nothing else is that sore. And you're like, quite a few things are.
yeah, definitely, yeah.
That's wild. So lots of hospital trips, lots of GP trips. Did you have any of the classic misdiagnoses like IBS or anything?
I did get told I had all the symptoms of IBS because of the bloating, the sort of gurgling, the like stomach distension, the painful bowel movements. Yeah, I definitely got told it was that. And I actually did at one point start a special like IBS diet to see if, that would help. And it didn't because it wasn't that. So
Yeah, so
yeah.
obviously it doesn't help because endometriosis, despite every year someone messages me and says, "Oh, you can cure your endometriosis with diet." And I'm like, "No, because we don't know what cures it." And I
Yeah.
promise you, that's kind of just it's fine if that's you wanting to take control of your condition in some way, but you're not allowed to tell other people if you just eat this, you'll be fine. Because you're like, I've had it cut out of me. Like that wasn't my diet, and your diet is not going to affect your organs being stuck together.
No,
It's
absolutely.
not how this
Like,
works. Um,
no.
and I think that is really frustrating. So you had your surgery in December to
Yeah.
look about. Um, and I guess my question is sort of you've been going through it for 20 years. That's a long time to see increasing symptoms and constant admin of going to see doctors and constantly having to advocate for yourself. Have you had a good support network through that of friends, family?
Yeah, I am lucky that I do have that support network. The only thing I'll say is I do have a wonderful family and wonderful friends, but nobody will ever know what it feels like unless you are going through it too, or have been through it. So as much as everybody is amazing in how they can support you in different ways, it it is hard for them to understand because they don't feel like that.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's
so
it's also hard, I would say, I mean, my now husband was amazing through it all, like absolutely phenomenal. But he was also the only person who ever saw me on the floor not able to move.
yeah,
The only like there's sometimes the people close to us, friends and things, if you're that ill, you don't see them because you don't go out.
that's it. Yeah, that's it. Your friends know of your pain because you tell them, and they might see you in pain. But like you say, when you are so bad, you can't. get off the bathroom floor, or you can't make it out of bed. They don't see that because you just text them and say, I can't meet you today, I'm really
Yeah.
poorly. I can't go to work today, I'm really poorly. But no one sees you heaving over the toilet because the pain is that bad, it's making you vomit. And my mum has seen that, my dad has seen that, my husband has seen that, and they're the ones that literally pick you up and
Oh yeah.
try to
Had
help.
washed my hair once for me
Yeah,
because I couldn't move, but it really like, and you're like, it has to, I can't, I've got to go into work at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. Like, and
yeah,
he literally, bless him, I will never forget this because I was so like, well, you will know exactly how I was. I was not okay. And I couldn't really move, and I was just emotionally done as well. I
yeah.
was like, I'm done feeling like this. I'm done, like, this is agony. And I just remember him doing that and me just being like, you're great. Like, because you're
Oh,
a functional adult, you don't feel like people should have to look after you. And I think, I don't know about you, I find that mentally very difficult. Where it's like I don't want to have to be looked after.
no, exactly. And you don't want to feel like you feel, and you don't choose to feel how you feel, and you don't choose to feel like absolutely rock bottom, in despair, frustrated, and like so low emotionally that you're just like, yeah, I am done. Like I don't know how to pick myself back up from this.
Yeah.
And I have days like that where you just think, I don't know how to carry on and keep going, because this is the same every day. Like, this is exhausting feeling like this.
Well, it can also be I think part of the mental strain as well comes from having to explain over and over, often to different medical professionals in the same ward or department, what's
Yeah,
going on, how you
yeah,
feel. And I had to do that last year because I'm back in clinic for the first time in 5 years for a number of reasons. Um, because there are some things that aren't quite adding up. So, I need to.
yeah, yeah,
But before I went, I wrote a big list because I was like, I just know I've done this. I did 10 years of it. I haven't
yeah,
had to do it in the last five, but I know I will walk in there and there'll be someone very lovely and they will know nothing
yeah.
about why I'm here. And sure enough, I went in, I sat down, he went, so apparently you've got suspected endometriosis. And I went, no, 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 no. Uh,
No.
gather round. Here is actually where we are. And bless him, he was very lovely and he listened. But mentally, that used to drive me insane. Or like one more doctor's letter. I used to just burst into tears because I can't move clinics again, or I can't like, it's too much.
Yeah, it is so hard. Like, you go to the GP and it's a different GP every time that you see, and you've got to start all over again. And it's like, oh, here we go again. I've got to tell you everything again. Yeah,
And it's the I don't want to say this, and I mean everyone has a different experience. One of the things I found quite challenging, and I hope you have a better experience with, surgeons are very good at what they do. They're
hmm,
not very good at talking to humans
no,
about what's going on inside your body. They're phenomenal. I'm like, you know what? You're great at what you do, and you're great at cutting me open and sorting me out. So fine.
yeah,
You do need someone else next to you to explain what you're going to do, though, because I
yeah.
definitely had one guy who I sat down in front of him at the tender age of 21, and he went, so do you want children? And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, because if you don't, I can just cut your womb out. His
Oh,
exact words. And I was
oh
like,
goodness.
what? This is my
What?
first appointment. Like,
Like,
it was wild. And like we love surgeons, they're great. There's some brilliant ones out there. But sometimes the combination of the amount of specialism we need
yeah,
and the type of people who do the job,
yeah,
it can take its toll sometimes, I think it's fair
yeah,
to say.
yeah.
I
And they,
hope you,
they speak at you so quickly and tell you all this information, like blah 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 blah. Earlier, you're just like, what? What did you just say? Like, yeah,
I feel like I want a transcript of appointments sometimes where I'm like, I need to reread the words he said to me, or
yeah.
like the parts of my body he named, or whatever it is.
Fortunately, my mum was there at the time when the surgeon came to see me after the laparoscopy, and he was literally talking at me a million miles an hour. This is what we found. This is what we need to do. Blah, blah, blah. And then after he'd gone, I was like, "Oh my goodness, mum, what did he say?" And I'm so glad I had someone else
Yeah.
there who heard what he said also, because I think I went into some kind of shock,
What you do?
completely not what I expected him to say. And then
Yeah.
I'm like watching his lips move and thinking, I'm not even remotely taking in what you're saying to me right now.
Well, exactly. I mean, one of the funniest things I still look back at is because my surgeon was in a private hospital. It was a Friday. He'd gone home at 5 o'clock. So by the time I came round, there was just loads. I was so ill after. I had to be like resedated and stuff because I don't do anesthetic very well. I really didn't then. And there's just my husband stood next to me. I'm throwing up. I have three nurses around me. I've got massive, like, I'm like, you put ice on me and I'm like sweating it off, like I was not okay. And then there's just my husband reading this folder going, do you know you have grossly normal fallopian tubes? And I was like, darling, I love you, but not now. Like, what? But yeah, my surgeon had gone home. I haven't seen him since,
Oh,
very nice
oh,
man, but yeah, like I really do feel like there should have to be either they should have to have what I have where they write everything down in great detail and give you that to take home.
yeah,
Or
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, or they should have to record something for you or like that you can listen to when you haven't just come round from anesthetic.
You're not, high on anesthetic. Like, yeah.
Well, exactly, like absolute madness. Now, we've got a couple more minutes of this interview, and I really want to know. I know that you are still in the trenches of it, and I know you've got a lot coming up as well. So I would love to know any sort of pieces of advice or thoughts you have for anyone who's in the same situation as you.
So this is something that I have found for myself, and I would like definitely to pass it on to people, is I'm not a very kind of confrontational person or anything like that. So I found it quite hard to advocate for myself and to push when you're not getting answers and things like that. But from my experience in the last couple of years, and certainly the last few months, it is so important to keep ringing, to keep calling, to keep emailing, to keep pushing, because they're so busy, and like you just become a name, a number, and like, you know, no one knows the severity of what you're going through unless you keep picking up that phone and saying, I'm not in a good place, like this is getting worse. Where am I on the list? Like I really need some answers. But that in itself is a struggle and is a fight, because it is exhausting having to do that, and it's exhausting having to fight for yourself. But it is really important to keep doing that. And that's something I need to keep remembering to keep doing for myself. So it is definitely, I hope, good advice that just, if you haven't heard anything, just keep pushing, keep plugging on, because, they need to know you're still there. You need to be on their radar.
Totally. And I think adding to that, it is a good idea to have someone with you in your appointments.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, absolutely.
sometimes it can be so emotionally shocking or draining when you get certain news that when you come out of the room at the end, you suddenly think of all the things you wanted to say and ask, and like
Yeah,
it's definitely worth preparing for those appointments with a list of like I always write them down. I have a note on my phone because I know if they tell
yeah,
me something I'm not expecting to hear,
yeah.
I'm just gonna lose
Got a
it.
huge list on my phone of symptoms and diaries and what makes things worse and if anything makes it better, and times that I've not even been able to make it around the supermarket because I'm in, little things that you'll forget when you get in there, but actually like those symptoms or those key things might be critical to them to know. But yeah, definitely write things down, definitely have questions, and definitely take someone that you trust and who supports you, and who can help you through this.
And if the
um
treatment isn't working, just because this fits really nicely into this, if a treatment isn't working, do not wait until your next appointment. Call
yeah,
them. Because,
yeah,
for example, I was put on, before my surgery, I was put on the progesterone only pill. That was like the last sort of line of thing. I was sick every day for 6 weeks. And I
yeah,
used to cry when I dropped my phone. And like, I couldn't live like that. So the nurse at my uni was like, absolutely not. Straight off that. No. Um, but I was like, oh, I have to wait for my next appointment. She's like, no, you don't. Call
yeah,
them, tell them now, because you're now not doing what they think you're doing
yeah,
because it doesn't work for you. So you have to call them and tell them. So don't be scared if something really isn't working for you. You know your body.
yeah. That is the same for me. So in the laparoscopy they put the Mirena coil in.
Yeah.
It's just not agreeing with me whatsoever. Like I have bled every day since they put it in, and I'm waiting for it to be taken out now. Because it's just not agreeing with me. And if I didn't speak up and say, and I just thought, oh, that's normal. It's okay to feel like that. They wouldn't know that. But when I spoke to them about it, they were like, yeah, absolutely. This does not sound like it's agreeing with you in any way. So let's get it out. So
Exactly.
that's the next sort of thing. But yeah, but just because it's something they suggest doesn't mean it's right for you.
Yeah, exactly that. Well, Stacey, thank you so, so much for your time today. I have loved hearing your story. I have all of my fingers and toes and digits crossed for you that you get a surgery date soon and that you get a really good experience and that this can end for you soon because my God, it sounds like a trial. But we really appreciate you coming to speak to us and thank you so much for being a part of Sew Yellow for Endo 2025.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.